We'll kind of pick up pace here. So this is recent times against 14 million years. This is 800 million years ago. Like, wow, this is contemporary. 540 million years ago, something really big and wonderful and famous happens, the Cambrian explosion. This is where the major groups of animals first show up in the fossil record. Now remember, we started with teams of bacteria 3.5 billion years ago with no oxygen. 540 million years ago, we start to get animals. The big ticket is the backbone that's coming online. A part of evolution is the dance of 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, 2 steps forward, 7 steps back, 13 steps, the back and the forth of it. 252 million years ago, there was a great dying, a great extinction event in which 70% of life on planet Earth, gone. It's after this that we get the rise of the dinosaurs that we all fell in love, or I did anyway, when we were little kids. T-Rex, Brontosaurus. These great, big, majestic animals come roaming around our Earth. About 65 million years ago, remember it's 2 steps forward, 7 steps back, 3 steps forward. Evolution is about increasing complexity. It's about creation taking some chances. It's about living. It's about dying. 65 million years ago, and we're pretty sure of this, our best conclusion is that the dinosaurs became extinct because a giant asteroid hit what we now know as the Yucatan Peninsula. They've got satellite images of this huge crater. So it hits the planet like umpteen million atomic bombs and just wipes out life all over. Not 100%, but a majority. Some archaeologists will say that gave the smaller animals, and they're serious, it's just a theory, but gave the smaller animals a little bit room to grow. They were not being eaten by all the bigger animals. Now that's a broad stroke, but this is evolution sort of working. We're going to fast forward 5 to 7 million years ago. We begin to come on the scene. It's 14 billion years of history. 5 to 7, we're not here yet. Homo sapiens, you're not here yet. But our earliest ancestors, the earliest ancestors of humans begin to appear on the planet. I like this. I don't do a lot with this, but I was put in this note. 3.4 million... Yeah, that's about right. 3.4 million to about 4,000, and we're going to zoom back out, but just as a little stopping off point, to about 4,000 years ago is what is referred to commonly as the Stone Age. We have in the fossil record that human beings and our ancestors, Homo sapiens and our ancestors, right? We're using stone tools. The pejorative is caveman, cave woman, kind of the shorthand, the Stone Age, which interestingly, and we're going to zoom back out, but I'm just kind of interested in this. So this is million. Interestingly, is by far the longest season of human history. I think someone did the math, like 99% of the history of the Homo sapien and his and her ancestors, we've been in the Stone Age. We're only just lately coming out. So again, you can see evolution by its very nature speeds up. You can see that these increments of time get shorter and shorter. Evolution speeds up. Okay, are y'all ready to be here? You know how old we are? Not old, y'all. We are young. 300,000 years ago. And remember I said, if you got better archaeology than me, I'll concede 50,000 years. I'll concede all margin. 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens show up on the scene. Remember, in the first season, something like 300,000 years of the universe, all that is is really hot hydrogen. It's just a really hot, soupy mess of hydrogen at the very beginning, 13.8 billion years ago, right? And all the hydrogen that ever was, is, or will be was created then. Somebody will come to me and say, well, we figured out how to make it in a lab. I'll concede that. I'm talking about the hydrogen that's organically produced in the universe. It all happens then. And you remember that Homo sapiens are 10% by volume. You are hydrogen. So it turns out God's a clever cat. You leave hydrogen alone in a really good garden for about 14 billion years, give or take, and you get this. Isn't that amazing? Can you imagine if if you were doing a project at home and your spouse or partner was like, I really would like for you to get this project done. It's going to be great when you do. And you said, it's going to take more than a weekend. How patient are you? It could take 14 billion. This is God's project to get to us. The patience, the grace, the glory. So, not too long after we get here, and we can't really pinpoint this, we'll just say 250 to 100,000 years ago, the third Big Bang happens. So remember, the first one is the universe burst into being. The second Big Bang, life on Earth. The third Big Bang is the emergence of consciousness in the Homo sapien. So we sometimes say that the human being, Laura, Sam, Robbie, all the rest, Emma, the human being is evolution that's aware that it is evolutionary. We are the first part of creation and 14 billion years that can reflect on the fact that we are other than our surroundings, that we are a part of what Teilhard de Chardin poetically calls the universal becoming, and we can have an effect on evolution. We can think about it, we can talk about it, we can participate in it. So for 100,000 years or so, Homo sapiens, conscious of the fact that we're here, are guided by survival and security needs. We live through instinct, intuition, and by banding together. About 50 to 100,000 years ago, we get even more organized. We develop rituals. I have a good friend who's a world-class photographer of cave art. So he's a master at lighting caves. So he's gone into caves all over the world and seen the art of our ancestors. And so we can tell from these sorts of things and other archaeological discoveries that somewhere along 50 to 100,000 years ago, our ancestors began to develop rituals. They began to see the world as a magical, enchanted place that had some kind of outside influence on it that was making things happen. About 15,000 years ago, this sort of consciousness, and we're not going to dive super deep into the stages of consciousness, but about 15,000 years ago, this enchanted world, our ancestors begin to have a sense that, wait, there are, I'll call them gods from the outside of the universe that are having this effect on what's happening here. They also begin to develop ties that are even deeper in community, tribes. 15,000 years ago, our people begin to realize the absolute might of their egocentric center. This begins what we oftentimes refer to in developmental theory as the warrior stage. This is the period in human history. You can think Viking warlords. You can think tribes of people who have realized that if I conquer Don's tribe, then I can get all the animals that he's got. I can get the food that he's got. I can get the women and children that he's got, and I can grow my tribe bigger. About 5,000 years ago, civilization begins. Give or take. Somebody will say, I think it was 8. Somebody will say it was 10. 4 to 10. Civilization begins. Civilization begins on the back of two big things, agriculture and the alphabet. Enables us to stay in one place. We don't have to move about so much because we can grow crops. We can stay here through various seasons and have food. In the alphabet, we become a literate people. We can communicate in an organized way. Human consciousness evolves alongside cosmic evolution and biological evolution. 5,000 years ago, human beings decide the world, this is a shorthand, and it's going to sound like today, the world's too darn violent. We cannot keep on going like this. I've always got to compete with the gods of the tribe next to me, and they've got so many gods, and I've got so many gods. This is referred to in the Bible sort of pejoratively as the pagan sort of system, right? All the many gods. Well, about 5,000 years ago, consciousness evolves to such a degree that we realize that to deal with the violence and the chaos of the earlier stage, we've got to get organized. And we need to organize ourselves under some sort of systematic way to have governance and safety and well-being. And in a little corner of the world, what we refer to as the Near and Middle East, our actual ancestors began to have intuitions about a higher power. There was one true God. And they called that God Yahweh, Jehovah, and the many gods coalesced into the one God. The Hebrew people come online. It's within the last 5,000. So you date the Old Testament stories at about as happening anywhere between 500 and 3,000 BC. Kind of, they're stories told around a campfire at first and then written down on scrolls and finally recorded in books way later. But it's about within the last 5,000 years, and there's lots of sort of margin and no sort of hard lines. Our ancestors, whom we come to finally know as the Jewish people, had these intuitions about the one God and about a system. We call it the law, a structure that can provide, if followed, for the well-being. This is civilization which begins, 6 to 10,000 years ago, really coming into bloom. So when you're reading through the Old Testament and you're reading about sort of this one little tribe we call Israel, or the Hebrew people attacking this other tribe and taking land, and all of the sort of violence that sometimes can be off-putting in the Old Testament. No, you can now situate that in a bigger timeline, starting 300,000 years ago through everything we've just talked about, and that is what you're seeing is the tail end of this overly violent stage of humanity coming to sort of order. This is the reason for the 10 Commandments. Order out of chaos. This is the reason for the 600 plus laws in Leviticus. Order out of chaos. It's not until about 200 BC that the Old Testament books, and it's a big season of time, are recorded. They're oral tradition until they're recorded. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, are complete in the 6th century BC. We're up to a pretty famous fella in our tradition. So 2,000 years ago, in a little out-of-the-way town called Bethlehem, a guy, Joseph, and a girl, Mary, have a little boy, Jesus. And he's born in the Near East, which is controlled by Rome. He's born in the Roman Empire. And I won't take you through the whole gospel. Y'all know the gospel.